Looking a little puny there.
Look, man, it's not been great.
Feeling a bit green around the gills.
The thing that has happened with my daughter returning to school after a year and a half away.
Oh, no. I don't like where this is going.
Is that it's basically like the thing that happened when she went to kindergarten and she had never been exposed to mass quantities of other children. It's just everybody's always like a little sniffly. It's not great.
Well, yeah, but now there's the added wrinkle of nobody has left the house for 18 months, right? Like, have our immune systems atrophied in that time?
I assume that I should be living in a bubble now.
Right. Like, we're not out there handling bus rails and opening like public doors and like being exposed to all the germs and stuff that keeps your immune system on its toes, right? I am no epidemiologist here, but I kind of just assume that our immune systems are losing their edge a bit through lack of exposure.
I haven't licked a subway turnstile in 20 months.
Ugh.
I mean, you gotta keep those defenses up, man.
Keep it sharp.
Yeah, no, I feel, and like the thing is, I don't know if it's because I'm 2 years older now, but it's hitting hard. Like I feel it now.
I don't think 2 years should be enough to make that big a difference without some other external factor.
I mean, I've mostly sat on my ass and done nothing for the last 2 years too.
That's the external factor. That's what I mean.
That's the real whammy there.
God, also it is almost 2 years, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, not. Look, it's been a long road.
I've seen alarming speculation out there, and it is just speculation. Like, nobody knows better than anyone else, right? But like here and there, I will see people saying like, yeah, full normal is not actually coming back until like 2023, 2024.
I mean, in terms of supply chain?
Well, I'm sure that's part of it. This was more in the context of like, when will people stop sequestering at home? Like, when will everyone who should be back in an office be back in an office?
Oh, dude, I'm sure some people who are sequestering at home are never going to stop sequestering at home.
I would put those people in a different category then. I would say like their lives have permanently changed, right? They made an actual policy change, but maybe a better way to describe it, I think, is when will it be considered safe to do so by everyone again?
Oh, like Bob Watchter, who works at UCSF and is an epidemiology guy, doctor, just to be clear, to cite references, posts about this a lot. And his thing is that he watches like the local numbers to see which way the trend lines are going to decide whether he's going to do things like eat at a restaurant or have poker night with his friends without masks off and stuff like that. So like, I feel, I don't know, like are the kids going to be in school next year with masks off? I bet in Florida they probably will, but probably not here. I don't know. Yeah. It depends on what happens post Delta, I guess. It's weird. We should maybe have Kishore back on to talk about like how things are going. It's been almost a year.
I was going to say
we usually do that in April, I guess.
That is the biggest kind of wake up call I think I've had on this whole thing is if we have Kishore back for his 3rd annual appearance on the state of things. Let's finish this cold open with something a little cheerier. You got anything else?
Okay, so I went to the drive-in last night.
Okay.
The drive-in movie theater.
Yes.
I drove my car into a movie theater. I didn't not a Grandpa Simpson style. You're supposed to drive the car in there.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. And we saw the Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Oh,
it's the first time I've seen a movie in the presence of other human beings in like 2 years now, 18 months.
Okay.
That was cool.
Do they still play the audio of the movie over your radio?
Well, so I did not know this because when I went to a drive-in movie theater the last time, you hooked what my father describes as the window breaker, the little box into your car. And like somebody leaves their window up a little bit, it has a hook on it. You hook it on the glass. And then when you forget to take it off when you leave, it rips the cord out and it shatters the glass in your window usually.
Sure does.
So, but we just tuned to 97.2. I had to learn how to use the radio in the car, which we haven't apparently done yet. So
and then you find out how good the speakers in your car are.
Well, we listen to music in the car all the time. Well, they're okay.
I know, but most radio music doesn't have let's say the bass response of a lot of feature films.
Did you go to drive-ins a lot though?
I don't think I have ever been to a drive-in in my life.
Okay. It was fun. Like I hadn't been to the drive-in since I was in high school because we had that was one of the big theaters in town. We had 2 drive-ins near where I grew up. There's one over on the way to Asheville, actually. That's like probably halfway.
Okay.
But we would go, like a group of friends would go, and they just charged $10 a car. So the goal was to pack as many people into one car as you can.
Damn.
And then you take like blankets and stuff and you lay out on the grass and, summertime.
Use the blankets to drape over the cases of beer and the floorboards.
Like you piled people over the cases of beer and the floorboards.
Fair.
Look, somebody who had a pickup truck was gold in this case. You could fit like for the amount of time it took to drive through the check-in gate and then have them jump over the sides as you're rolling into your spot in the line. Like it was like, maybe 5 minutes. You could pack 10, 12 people in the bed of a pickup truck. No problem.
They somehow fit 20 people into the bed of that pickup truck. I mean, they're all standing, but I'm sure it's safe.
Look, and we thought we were getting away with something, but really in reality, they were charging like $4 for a hot dog, which was roughly, $130 in 2021 money.
It's the accessories. That's how they get you. Not just in the wallet, but apparently also in the stomach.
Welcome to Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod. I'm Will.
I'm Brad. How are you feeling? Any better after the music? It's been so long.
The music helps. Brad, if you made a musical lineup and said, here are 5 songs, which one is the theme song for our podcast?
Oh, no.
I might not be able to pick it out.
Really?
I don't ever listen to the edited show.
Oh, dude, I hear it every week.
Yeah, you do you put the music in.
In fact, I am so obsessive about making sure the cues and the ducking are just so that I hear it like 10 times over.
Yeah, and the last time I heard it was probably when I added it to Spotify or something. I was like, oh yeah, okay, sounds okay.
Remember, it's got that delightful little, I don't think it's actually a square wave, but it's that NES-y kind of square wave synth. Yeah, there you go. See, you know it.
Something I don't remember how it goes after that, but yeah. So yeah, I feel okay. I'm fine. I'll be able to tough through this, and I'm really excited about our guest this week, who is an old friend. We used to have him on during the time that I was at Tested fairly regularly to talk about taking stuff apart or repairing things. Kyle Wiens from iFixit has been championing right to repair since before it had a name, I think, probably. And we're going to talk to him this week about Apple's and Microsoft and the kind of rest of the industry, kind of state of the union of where we are on right to repair.
Yes.
And how he's feeling in the wake of Apple saying, yeah, we're going to sell parts for the iPhone to normal people.
A landmark move, you might call it.
Yeah. Welcome to the show, Kyle. We're so glad to have you here.
Yeah, excited to be here. This is going to be fun.
So it's kind of a big week for right to repair with Apple seemingly embracing people who want to fix their own devices that previously been inaccessible to them. And I have to say, having known you for a long time now, like I feel like this ball is kind of in your court. This is a lot of work on your end that kind of nudged them over the last 10 or 12 years into this direction.
This is the thing. I've been a broken record on this for a very long time. Yeah. I mean, just tell us how to fix our stuff.
So let's, I kind of want to start with your story because we'll talk about what right to repair is. I mean, it's shockingly broad at this point, from like farm equipment to the phones that we all carry around with us every day,
hospital equipment.
Yeah, like there's so much stuff that's closed with a SLA or with a license that comes with the hardware that then prohibits the people who are actually purchasing the hardware from fixing it when it breaks. And like you've done the whole thing. You've talked to Congress. You've yelled at Apple. You just went out and started writing manuals, helping the community write manuals. Like how did this all start for you?
At the very beginning, it was I dropped my iBook, dating myself a little bit. My laptop. I dropped my iBook on the power cord, and this was pre-MagSafe. Also dating myself. And the power book cord was a little bit loose. And so it was clear it was just needed a little bit of solder to fix it. So like, okay, well, I'll just open it up myself. And I started trying to take the computer apart and very quickly got lost. And so I looked for a service manual online and couldn't find anything. And I am, I guess, young enough that I assume that any information in the world, if it exists, it's on Google. And so this was odd. It was like this first kind of cognitive moment where I was like, there's information that I know exists that's not on Google. And I did some more investigation and learned that the service manuals had been posted online, but they had been taken down with DMCA, legal threats.
So Apple had actively reached out to people who posted the documents and said, hey, we're not going to allow this. This is our copyrighted material. You got to take it. You got to put it away.
Right.
One of the questions I've had in my back pocket was like, what was your relationship with Apple like before? But I guess that probably answers the question.
Yeah. I mean, prior to this, I had actually worked at an Apple authorized service center. So I knew what everything looked like. But yeah, it really struck me wrong that like you're going out of your way. Like you're actually paying expensive people money to take my freedom away and make it harder for people to fix their stuff. And after that, we learned it wasn't just Apple. We had Toshiba has sent lawyers after people. Like this has kind of been the norm to use legal threats to prevent people from knowing how to fix their things.
Was there a, like, did they have a justification for that beyond just the lawyers, like too many lawyers were in charge, or?
I mean, the high level is this is our proprietary copyrighted information and you are not authorized. You don't have the right to distribute it. When you get into the details, they'll have other reasons that they'll say for why we shouldn't fix our things. But they have a solid legal argument, right? I mean, we paid people to write it. It's our copyrighted material.
It's funny to watch their rhetoric change with the times, because now you'll see them say things like, oh, unauthorized repair people might access your data while they have your device open, and it's like, oh, the data is a big scary word right now. So it's almost like some of it almost comes off as like fear mongering, honestly.
Right. And let's not talk about the Apple Service Center in Elk Grove that took a woman's iPhone that she'd sent in for service, took the nude photos that they found on her phone and posted them to her Facebook account.
Oh my God.
Wow. Huh.
Wow. So yeah, like it's been really interesting watching this kind of the tide change on right to repair over the last few years. See, I touched on tractors, the hospital stuff. Like they're a tractor. You can buy a tractor today that has software on it that basically prohibits you from fixing your broken tractor. Which, like, growing up on a farm when I was a kid, the number of times we had to wrench on the old Ford tractor to keep things going, like it's that's unthinkable, really, right? Like, it's part of farming is that you have to work on your stuff.
You have to. The ground is mean to you and your equipment, right? Things break all the time. It's just a normal part of life, is that you're tinkering with and you're fixing things. And I think, this kind of comes down to the fundamental worldview differences that Apple wants to have control over every last piece of your life. And part of this is this design intent, this idea that we're going to design the flawless experience, and then you're going to live within that experience. Well, if you need to go outside of that designed experience, it's a problem. I remember for a long time, Apple was like the last one to add a flashlight natively to iOS.
Yeah.
Android had it, everybody had it. And I'm convinced the reason is that Apple's designers had never needed a flashlight in their lives.
That's entirely possible.
It's just outside of their worldview. What, you live somewhere where you don't have illumination on demand at all times, right? And I think this is the case for farmers. John Deere wants to lock things down like Apple has done, and they're taking some degree of freedom and self-determination away from farmers.
It's interesting to hear you mention them trying to design the flawless experience, compared to something you posted on Twitter this week after the Apple news came out about essentially what you're doing by repairing devices is really just pushing back against entropy. And entropy is such an unstoppable force that even Apple's product designers can't hope to ever stop it. You know what I mean? So it's like the very idea that they could make a flawless experience that never needs repair is so inherently absurd on its face, right?
Everything decays. I've been watching the Apple TV show C lately about the future, and guess what? Everything broke in the future. Society runs down. This is the natural state of things.
One of our favorite quotes on the show is the Hitchhiker's Guide quote from, I think, Mostly Harmless, where Douglas Adams said, "The only difference between something that can't fail and is designed to eventually fail is that when the thing that can't fail does fail, you have absolutely no hope of recovering from that failure."
Mm-hmm.
So it's important. And just to be clear, Kyle, thank you. I mean, I say this every time I talk to you, I think, but like, over the years, your site has helped me fix so many things that I've broken, or that, like, my boss poured coffee in her MacBook and I just busted out the screwdrivers, the pentalobes, popped that thing open, ran rubbing alcohol over it and closed it back up, and she was back in business, and the IT department was never the wiser. So,
well, appreciate that. Happy to help. I always say we just want to be useful. So that's my kind of. So I have a question for you guys then. So having used iFixit, now you have Apple is coming out and saying they're going to have service manual on apple.com for the iPhone. So what are you going to use, Apple or iFixit?
I mean, honestly, like there is an element of like habit and trust that's built up over the years, right? Of like that's. Like looking at the iFixit teardown is definitely my habit, right? Like that's the thing I'm used to doing, and I generally trust it, right? So like I might actually still stick with the grassroots thing over the corporate thing, at least at the beginning,
Well, and the other thing for me is the Apple guides are much less useful if they don't provide if they don't also make the tools available. So like if I can't buy the shim that you use to lift the iPad screen off, then like I'll have to get the guitar picks out and let it rip the way I've been doing it for the last 10 years. So.
They're going to sell the tools, but they're going to recommend their very expensive fixtures.
Yeah,
so that's, I think, probably an underappreciated aspect of what iFixit does is that we don't just figure out a repair process for the thing. We figure out a repair process that is affordable within the context of the repair.
Well, and you also do a really lovely job kind of telling me as a user how much trouble I'm going to be in with this, like how difficult these are going to be. So like, hey, is there glue involved in getting a screen off or something like that? Or, hey, the one Joy-Con is way easier to open and swap out than the other one because of the way the IR sensor works on, I think is it the right side that has the IR? I can't remember, but that stuff, I feel like that's the kind of thing that'll take Apple a few iterations to do if they bother to like take feedback from the community that uses this stuff. So, and frankly, I love your tools. There's always the screwdriver that lives on my desk is one of these bad boys, which is my all-time favorite. So, let's see. There's been. Do you think that this Apple stuff is a result of legislative movement?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they wouldn't have budged otherwise.
Right.
I mean, to put this other way, I've been trying at this for 18 years, right? The only thing that's budged these companies has been the threat of legislation. I tried. There's this voluntary a green standard. The green sticker for computers is called EPEAT. And I tried getting involved and getting at the table and working on saying, can we do this in an incentive way? Can we make this nice? Can we give you extra points if you design things to be repairable? And we sat across the table from Apple, and they systematically shot down every attempt at compromise over the last 10 years.
So where do things stand legislatively? I mean, is action imminent at this point? Like, is the ball rolling enough that they really, because, Microsoft also has commissioned this investigation, which we'll talk about later. Like the companies seem like they are trying to get out ahead of something. Is that something pretty close?
The political winds are at our back.
Yeah.
But the kind of the timing of this is legislation, state level legislation usually happens between January and April. And this year, the FTC report sort of eviscerating the manufacturer's arguments came out in May. So it came out right after all the state legislation was done. And so we're expecting come January, all the states will introduce bills again, but they'll introduce bills with the feedback from the Federal Trade Commission and the support of the Biden administration.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I guess let's talk like what exactly is Apple is saying, hey, we're going to sell parts. And I think they're starting with a limited run, which like I'm always amazed that you have screens for brand new phones basically available for purchase the moment I dropped an iPhone 6 like 3 days after I got it and hadn't bought Apple Care. So I was like, well, time to hit iFixit and find out where I can get this. And you guys had the hardware. Like I always wondered how that works. But it has to be nice that now we're also gonna be able to get like the hardware directly from Apple too.
Yeah, you'll be able to get hardware from Apple. I don't know that I will. They haven't offered to sell me parts. But I mean, we get it from all over the place. We have aftermarket part sources. Usually when it's brand new products, we're parting things out. So we'll buy new machines, we'll part them out, and that'll be our part supply for the first year or two until we can get a factory spooled up to do it.
That makes sense. I always feel like one of the things that I like about iFixit, and these days you can go on AliExpress, you can go to Amazon even and buy like I've replaced so many Joy-Con sticks for people at this point that it's become a joke among my friend group, and my daughter's friends are like, hey, can you fix my Switch for me? but I like buying the iFixit sticks because I know that they're going to be good, and you don't always get that from the other places. So I appreciate that.
It's always shocking to me. We'll sell something for $25 and you can get it on eBay for $6.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, cool. But maybe the difference between $6 and $25 is not worth that amount of your life frustration. I will be blown away. We see repair kits on eBay and Amazon, and we look at them and they're like, there is no way that would ever work for anyone. Not like it'll work half the time, but like that tool will never work.
Oh yeah. Well, and like, if I'm doing my feeling on that is if I'm doing the work to replace something, like if I'm replacing a switch and a mouse that's broken, and it's going to be 20 minutes of disassembly and an hour of me cursing and desoldering badly, like I don't want to have to do that twice. If I buy the bad, like I want to buy the thing that's going to make sure I don't have to do that work twice. Yeah. So
I'm curious, have you been fixing mice? I'm sitting here. I've got my blue Yeti Blue, which is Logitech. I've got my Logitech mouse.
So I had Logitech G Pro, which has I can't remember which switch that they ship with now, but it's notorious for failing after a couple 100,000 clicks, and it failed right on schedule. So I ordered some switches from some KLH switches from China and mouse switches, and got a much more satisfying. Listen to this click.
Ooh.
It's a good click.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Little higher.
You're sticking with. Too. Was that a reasonable experience?
It was if I had a reflow station, even if I had bought like a cheap reflow station, it would have been about a 20-minute job. Because I did not, and I was trying to use a solder, like even a good solder sucker, it's 3 connectors. If you don't do that a lot, it's kind of hard work. And it was really, really tight, even with a good soldering iron and a decent sucker. So it was a pain.
Okay. Well, hopefully it gets better in the future.
I would love that. I mean, the thing is, there's a board in most of the mice, especially the newer ones that are multi-plane boards. This is a total diversion, but the multi-plane boards, the board that the switches are soldered on would be an easy replacement. And you could sell that board with the switches on it and just swap the new board in and be fine, probably, I think. So anyway.
If we could circle back around to the Apple stuff, I wanted to ask, I mean, you touched on tooling a little bit earlier, but when I think of iPhones and iPads, I mean, those are some of the most tightly assembled, densely packed electronics I can think of, glue and, do you see them providing maybe more streamlined tools to the consumer to get those things open than what you would find at like the Genius Bar? Or do you think they will just be providing exactly the same tooling for service that the actual employees are using?
We don't know. My gut feel is it will be exactly the same thing that they're selling to the IRP program right now, their independent repair provider program. Okay. And those tooling, I mean, they're expensive fixtures. I don't know the exact price, but it's like a big metal block with suction cups. And if Apple provides kind of the same setup and says, okay, well, the same things we're providing IRP, you can also buy it yourself, it would not make sense for anyone to buy those tools to do a repair. You're going to spend far more on the tools than you do on just a single part.
The things that to me would make the repair process a lot easier are the things like the tiny ribbon cables that you have to get in with 1/4 of an inch of clearance between the screen and the board as you're closing it back up and stuff like that. Like putting all the ribbon cables on one side of the device, it turns out makes opening it and fixing it infinitely easier than when you put half on one side and half on the other side. It's just little stuff like that, or even building tools that make getting those they're almost like friction fit ribbons back in would make things a lot easier. So
yeah, I mean, we like to say, I mean, what we're trying to do is designing an experience that anyone can follow. It has to be affordable so that we can include a kit, right? We'll sell, let's say a battery is $25. We'll sell a kit with all the tools for $30, right? So I got to get all the tools that you need to buy that at $5, including our margin. And then that process has to be easy for you. And so that's something that, we're doing our darndest to design an experience that works for people within the constraints of the hardware that we have. And I think a good example, with the iPhone, I think we're pretty successful. It's overall a good kit. We also have repair kits for the iPad, and that's much harder.
Yeah.
I don't generally recommend the iPad repair for a first-time fixer. It's like get your feet wet with some other repairs first and build your patience up, and then you can take on the heating that it's involved in.
Maybe repair something that doesn't require heating up the device before you open it.
Yeah, I've taken a handful of iPads apart, and each one has been terrifying and is not something I would like to repeat. Do you feel like that's getting better in the post Johnny Ive era? Like, are the new MacBooks better than the previous gen MacBooks?
Well, the iPad hasn't changed, but the new MacBook was definitely better. So one of the things that we like about the iPhone design is it's got the stretch release adhesive on the battery. And we've been hoping, Apple's been gluing the batteries down forever. We've said, why don't you use the stretch release? Well, the new MacBook Pro that everyone's excited about with all the ports also has stretch release adhesive. So it went from, we have been giving pretty much every MacBook since 2012 on, we've given a 1 out of 10 on our repair score. They haven't been scoring very well. This one, we upped it to a 4 out of 10, which is really,
Yeah. So they're going to start.
I should note it's a 4. You can buy a framework that will be a 10. So
baby steps.
What are the it seems like if I had to guess, I would say that screens and batteries probably are the things that people want to replace the most in their devices. Is that fair, or is there other?
Yeah, I mean, a battery is a consumable, so it's like the toner in your printer or the tires on your car. Are you going to replace the tires on your car? Absolutely, I'll do it. Every 30,000 miles or whatever it is. Like, that's just normal, right? So the battery in your phone is every 500 cycles, or call it 2 years.
Yeah.
So that should just be inevitable. So, like, every single phone manufactured is going to need a new battery every so often. That's just a given. Beyond that, you've got the screen, obviously very common glass. We got the thing that we take in and out of our pockets all day that's made of glass. Of course, we're going to drop it and break it sometimes. And then increasingly, cameras are definitely a number 3. And then you have other things like ports and buttons.
Yeah, I saw the thing yesterday or today about motorcycle vibrations.
Yeah,
killing
you saw
phone
Brian
cameras.
Chen's tweet.
Yeah.
Did you see the Apple ad?
Yeah. Why would they do an ad?
I don't know. I hadn't seen that ad before. So just for everyone who's not like living on Twitter like Will and I are. So Apple has a pretty fantastic ad of this motorcycle courier in Spain, and he's driving around with his fancy iPhone 13, and it looks awesome. But he's got his iPhone strapped to his handlebars. And those of us in the repair world, we watch it, we just kind of twitch. We're like, well, you did what? Because you don't want to strap your phone to the handlebar of a motorcycle.
Why is that, Kyle?
Because the camera, the optical stabilizer in the camera is held on with basically little tiny wires, and it vibrates and it breaks the wires, and your camera just kind of droops and falls, and it's sad.
Yeah, it's funny. Brian had tweeted about this years ago when he killed his couple of phones on his motorcycle before, and I think Apple's they released a very carefully worded release today that said basically get a stabilized mount if you're going to put your phone on.
Did they release that today?
Yeah, it was part of that tweet thread that.
Brian posted. That's not. They've said that before.
Oh, maybe okay. So maybe that's it. And I just didn't.
But it seems like advertising malpractice for them to be. Because this has happened. I have a friend here. I know it's happened to Brian twice. But I have a friend here in SLO who just had a scooter, not a crazy motorcycle.
Yeah.
And it's weird because I mountain bike and I strap my phone to my mountain bike all the time, and it's fine on a bicycle, but not on a motorcycle. The vibration of the engine is what does it.
Really specific.
Yeah.
Let's see. The other thing I've seen recently as a result of this announcement is a lot of people have come out and said, hey, this is something that only like a fraction of a single percentage of users are actually going to take advantage of. Doesn't really matter because of that. What do you have a response to that, Kyle?
Well, it's totally going to come down to their implementation and their pricing. If you can make repair affordable, we'd say, so right now Apple's battery replacement for a phone is say $69. You can get an iFixit kit for $25 and do it yourself and not have to deal with waiting in line. Like, a lot of people are going to take advantage of that, right? Where if you make the battery available for $69 and you have to buy another $200 in tools, is anyone going to take advantage of that?
Probably not.
So it totally depends on how they shape the program.
So you think they might even require you to have purchased the tools in order to get the hardware?
I don't know. I have a feeling no, but I have a feeling the instructions are going to say use this $200 tool. So then you're going to have to figure out a different way if you don't follow their instructions precisely.
Well, and I think my hope too is that we'll see, because they're opening up repair to a larger group of people. My hope is that we'll see them actually like designing the hardware going forward, so it's easier for users to repair as well.
Yeah, that would be the hope. And that's, I mean, we saw like in clear design intention with the MacBook Pro design. And I would say also the iPhone design mechanically is one of the better smartphone designs on the market for repair.
Well, since they switched to the 10 with the 2 screws on the bottom, it's been so much easier to get open.
Yeah, 2 screws on the bottom, flips open from the side. Yeah, there's some adhesive that you have to work on that's involved in the waterproofing, but the design it's not designed for users to repair, but it's designed for geniuses at Apple stores to swap the batteries and the screens very quickly. It's not designed to do other repairs, but those are the priority components.
What do you think is going to happen with warranties and this?
Yeah, we've been living in this world where generally opening this device voids your warranty, right? Like, how does that square with, in your mind, how do you think that squares with this change in policy? And like, do they have any legal grounds to amend warranties, or is that kind of set in stone once a product sells?
The warranty situation is set in stone. So manufacturers cannot legally void your warranty if you do repairs. As a matter of fact, the Federal Trade Commission has sent a number of companies letters telling them to stop doing things like that. Okay. They sent Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo all letters telling them to drop the warranty void if remove stickers from the game consoles. And Apple has actually always been good on this point. Their warranty says, you can repair it yourself if you want. If you damage anything in the process of repairing it, that can void your warranty. That's fair. So this is settled U.S. law. It's the Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act that was passed back in the 70s. That says, and it was, I mean, you see this more often with cars. You buy a brand new Corvette and you put bling and rims on it. GMC can't, void your warranty because you upgraded your tires. It's the same thing with electronics.
Okay. Got one last Apple question before we move on here. Is it safe to assume that the iPhone is probably the smallest device they will opt into this program? Or are the watch and the AirPods going to remain disposable from here on out?
Well, I mean, we need to pressure them to change things. And so I would say no, we should get them to include all of their products. Yeah. The AirPods in particular, I think the AirPods are the Apple product that people have the biggest problem with battery obsolescence on.
Sure.
We did just pop open the new AirPods 3. We got a video up this week, but the battery is no longer soldered in, which is interesting. So the whole case is welded, ultrasonically welded together. So you have to destroy the case to get in. But once you have the case open, the battery does have a little connector on it. So who knows? Maybe they could improve the exterior mechanical design, and then it might be possible to change the battery.
This is kind of a sore point around here. My girlfriend has an older Apple Watch that the battery is bulging in so much the screen is slowly popping out of the case. Yeah. I'm sure you're familiar, but I'm pretty sure it was your battery replacement guide that said, hey, this is hard enough that you might actually want to think about just taking it in.
Yeah, although by the time that it's bulged and it's popped it open, the repair is a lot easier now.
Interesting. Okay. The hard part is
opening it. So if the battery has done the opening for you, maybe you're all right.
We'll look into that then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always getting the screen off is always the hard part for me on the glued stuff. It seems like.
Yeah, we call these expanded batteries. We call them spicy pillows.
I like that when I took a phone in that was still under warranty that had a puffy battery at one point, and I just literally watched the genius walk back and put it in the sandbox, and he was like, yeah, okay, here's your new phone, enjoy. What's up with Microsoft? So they're evaluating, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, this is we've seen this broadcast from Microsoft a little bit where they redesigned the Surface laptop. It went from a 1 out of 10 a 0 out of 10 on our scorecard where it was impossible to replace the battery without destroying it, to a 5 out of 10. A substantial redesign. They're using magnets on the case. It's straightforward to open. They went back to modular storage, so you can separate the storage from the device, which is huge, not just for repair but for recycling and. So that's a big win. And then there was a shareholder initiative where some shareholders were asking Microsoft to be more repair friendly and maybe put a report together laying out how it jives with their climate commitments. And normally companies just squash these shareholder initiatives. You always hear about them getting voted. Now, no. In this case, Microsoft negotiated with the organization that put it together and said, you know what, you're right. We're going to do what you say, and we're going to put the report on how we can integrate repair into our process, and we're going to work on providing parts and tools to people. So kind of awesome. Similar to Apple's about face here.
So are you relatively bullish on that report? I mean, this might be overly cynical, but when I first saw that news story, that the language around it, we're going to investigate the environmental impact of, you would probably agree that some healthy skepticism around corporate messaging is warranted. But in this case, do you take them at their word? Do you think this has a good chance of actually panning out?
I mean, Microsoft signed an agreement. The NGO was called As You Sow that did it, and they have a lot of credibility. So Microsoft has a signed agreement with them, and they've demonstrated other signs. I want to see the proof is in the pudding, right? But we've got a redesigned product there. They just announced their new Surface Laptop SE for schools. It's a $250 laptop, and I guess repairability and making repair parts available to schools is a big part of that program.
Yeah, it's a big. I know at my daughter's school specifically, they're like the number of Slack Chromebooks they have to have around to cover accidents and just wear and tear that the kids put on them is pretty substantial. So being able to fix those on site would be really nice.
It would be really nice. Yeah. And I mean, it's I think a chink in the armor of the Chromebook companies, because Acer and Asus don't do a good job with part supply chain at all.
Yeah. What do you, the other thing is the new consoles seem to be much easier to open. Like each successive generation of Xbox has seemed easier to work on than the previous generations.
Yeah, the trick there is the optical drive is the thing that, at least with the consoles that still have optical drives, we still have this problem where the optical drive is cryptographically paired to the main board. And so we sell when we sell optical drives for these consoles, we have to sell the optical drive and the main board together. So instead of it being like a $99 repair, instead, iFixit is like $250, and I'm out of stock because we don't get very many main board and optical drives that we can sell. So this is totally a pain in the neck. But I have hope. So we haven't been able to break them apart and sell them individually because it was actually illegal because of Section 1201 of the DMCA that says it's illegal to break digital locks. Well, we, along with Public Knowledge, a think tank in DC, applied for an exemption to that law for game consoles, and we just got that exemption a couple weeks ago.
Oh, nice.
So it is now legal if you can break the lock combining the optical drive on an Xbox or a PlayStation with the main board. You could separate them and then repair it.
So do you think this could be as simple as like the old TiVo hack where you would bless a drive and TiVo would be like, oh yeah, this drive's cool with me, and do that with the firmware on the optical drive then?
Yeah, that's what we want. Now, okay. The catch is it's legal, but nobody has made that software tool. So my challenge to everyone listening to this is if you know any security researchers, we need now it's time we need to break the lock and figure out how to do it.
Well, and the cryptography probably is pretty scary at this point.
It's gotten pretty good, yeah.
Sure. Game consoles are an interesting example because like with the phone, as you pointed out, things like batteries are inherently expendable, right, or consumable. Like those things are designed to run out after a while. But on a game console, I guess there are fewer parts that to me seem obvious for frequent replacement. Like what do you see Microsoft offering inside an Xbox Series X, for example, like optical drive and maybe fans seem
I would say it's the storage and the optical drive first.
Okay.
But after that, it's things like power supplies. I mean, do you know about the Xbox Ant thing?
Oh, it's like the PlayStation cockroach thing?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Like just Google Xbox and ants.
Okay.
And you'll just see hundreds of pictures of it. Turns out that the resin that they use attracts bugs to the power supply.
Wow.
I had that problem with a cable modem years and years ago. It became utterly infested with ants to the point that Comcast just took it back and quarantined it. They were nesting in there. Interesting.
So, I mean, this is where I talk about, we're fighting a war on entropy. Like the whole world wants to tear your electronics back into constituent atoms. And it's up to you. You're the caretaker. It's up to us to keep our stuff running.
Do you think we could get to a point where say every single PCB in an Xbox Series X is on a parts list that you could buy, like daughter boards for Wi-Fi or any kind of granular stuff?
I'd love to see that. I think that's a question, ask Microsoft. Let's continue to push. I mean, if we get right to repair legislation passed, right, then they'll need to.
What's going on with the rest of the industry? You said, I mean, I know Acer and Asus are notoriously challenging in terms of aftermarket parts, but how are like Google and Samsung on the phone side? They both sell a bunch of phones, it seems like, and
yeah, Samsung's been really bad, and they've got proprietary diagnostic software that they don't make available. Their authorized shops have it, other folks don't, which is like really fundamentally anti-competitive. Like the U-Break iFix shops are, well, then now they're Assurian, but they are certified by Samsung, so they have tooling that the repair shop across the street from them doesn't have. And it's unfair because there are like ways that they can do a better job with the repair that an independent shop just can't do. So Samsung has been particularly bad. Google, we'll see. Google just released a tool for the Pixel 6 to recalibrate the fingerprint sensor. So where Apple has not made that available, Google's like, you just go to, I think, it's pixelrepair.withgoogle.com, and you click install fingerprint calibration sensor, plug your computer in, and you just hit your phone into your computer, and it just through Chrome, it just calibrates the new part. It's exactly what we want to see.
Wow, that's awesome.
I'm pretty optimistic about Google, and pretty pessimistic about Samsung right now.
I mean, it seemed like Google started, when they started selling Pixel phones, they started off a little rough, because I remember I smashed back glass on my phone, and it was going to be basically cheaper to just get a new phone than to fix the back glass. But it seems like each generation they've got a little bit better about making the parts more replaceable if they don't make them available themselves.
Yeah, that's the hope. We do. I mean, we sell parts for just about every Pixel on iFixit. I've got my Pixel 3a. The headphone jack is a little wiggly, so I've actually got the part right here. I was going to put it in this weekend.
It's a cobbler's son has no shoes, right? Any other offenders? Anybody else you want to call out as good or bad here, Kyle?
I mean, let's talk about framework. They're pretty cool. So, I mean, because we haven't had a 10 out of 10, like super awesome computer that we can recommend. I don't know what you're recommending to your friends, but if you want a repairable, upgradable laptop that's kind of flagship quality, that's, sleek, there hasn't been one. So having framework come along, Nirov, the CEO, used to be at Apple, and then he was one of the, I think, founding Oculus team members. Mm-hmm. And now he's, it's a really great laptop with modular ports. Configure it how you want. If you always want, an HDMI port, you can set it up. I wish my laptop had a single USB-A port. That would be nice instead of just USB-C.
I've just gone back full desktop since the pandemic started. When do
Never
I leave
your house?
Laptop?
Yeah.
Anybody else who's anybody like on the console front? We talked about Xbox a little bit. What about Sony and Nintendo?
Yeah, I mean, so what we've seen on iFixit has been just a massive spike in game console repair interest across the board since the pandemic started. I mean, I dare you to buy a PS5 right now. So that continues to be the trend. And I mean, we have seen like Sony, every time they announce a new console, they do a teardown ahead of iFixit. They beat me to it every time. I don't know how they beat me. They're just so sneaky and fast.
They must have guys in New Zealand.
Yeah, they must have guys in New Zealand. So I don't know. I mean, we've seen, mechanically they're fixable, but we haven't seen any kind of ecosystem support from any of these companies yet. And that's really where I think we're going to need to get. I mean,
but you are able to get things like Joy-Con pads and
not
Joy-Con
from the manufacturers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we go to aftermarket manufacturers.
Do you actually? Yeah. I mean, we did an episode about controllers and stick drift a few months ago and cited you folks pretty heavily. I mean, do you have any updated feelings on where analog joystick drift is at in particular? Because it seems like such a pervasive issue.
I mean, the only option has to be make the parts interchangeable, right? It's a consumable, just like a battery. I think I don't quite understand how we've gotten to this point, and like now we're finally talking about joystick drift. I mean, even us at iFixit, we hadn't been talking about it a lot until the last couple of years. but it seems like it's just a fundamental component of the technology. These things wear out. It's just entropy. It's okay. It's a wear item. Yeah.
I mean, it seems like the low profile ones are worse. The low profile ones that use the capacitive touchpads are worse than the ones that used pots in the old days. So I don't know. We have a few minutes left. Can we talk about e-waste? Because this is like, there's two sides of this. One is it's nice to buy something and then use it longer. You know, I went through for years I was reviewing every new phone when they came out. So I always had the new thing. And I think I replaced an iPhone 10 last year, which is the longest I've had a phone since smartphones were a thing. And it was surprisingly good up until the very last year. Like everything was working great. I was really pleasantly surprised by that experience. And as a result, I didn't put 3 phones in the landfill in that time period, right? I mean, we all have, I think, probably e-waste recycling days around us. What do you know what happens to that stuff? Is that something you pay attention to?
E-waste is the fastest growing waste stream in the world. You know, as we talk about the Internet of Things, that means there's electronics in all of our things. There's precious metals that go into it. Semiconductors are hugely resource intensive. And then they need specialized facilities to recycle. So you don't want to put your electronics in a blue bin. You got to send them to a specialized electronics recycler. You know, Goodwill or Best Buy or other folks will collect electronics for you and then recycle it properly. Where they go is a facility where they're manually separated and processed. If there's parts in there that are, you know, possible to be repaired or resold, they do that. And then they go into a shredder. But I would say before they go into a shredder, they remove the batteries, because if you run a battery through a shredder, you get a spark, and oftentimes there's aluminum, there's metal dust. It can cause explosions and fires, and it's bad.
And any idea what happens to that post-shred material? Is that literal waste at that point? That's just
no. So if it's plastic, it goes to, you know, they'll turn it into park benches or whatever. The aluminum and the steel all gets recycled.
Okay.
Sure. So the electronics recyclers do a great job, and there is definitely material recovery. The metals are pretty much infinitely recyclable. The plastics are downcycled. They go to lower grade material. But then you have trace amounts. You have things like the indium in the screen and honestly the lithium and the graphite and the batteries. The neodymium and the magnets and the microphones and speakers, all of that is lost in the slag. So there's, out of all the elements on the periodic table, about 50 of them are in your smartphone. 15 of those are recoverable in recycling, and the others are lost in the process.
Okay, so it sounds like people who may have been skeptical about whether seeking out e-waste specific recycling can rest assured that it's actually being done ethically.
You absolutely need to send it to a specialized recycler.
Okay. You know, you hear certain stories about like, this plastic that was supposedly being recycled was actually just shipped to another continent for 20 years or whatever. But
I mean, even there, it's better than sending it to the blue bin or the landfill.
Okay.
We now the challenge that we have with informal recycling in developing countries is definitely an issue. I've been to many of these. I went to a particular spot in Accra, Ghana called Agbogbloshie, where if you've seen photos of like children burning electronics, this is often where they are. And I met the kids who are burning the electronics, and I asked them, "Why are you doing that?" And they said, "Well, we're mining the cables for the copper inside them, and we sell it, and we make about $5 a day, which is a good wage there." So that kind of informal recycling happens, but it's not particularly electronics that we're dumping here that's causing that. It's Africans, Ghanaians use a lot of electronics, and when they're done with them, someone needs to recycle them. And Ghana doesn't have the domestic electronics recycling infrastructure that we do in developed countries.
Okay. It still seems like the best thing to do if you have something is to find somebody else who can use it. And pass it down
absolutely. Yeah. Find someone, find another life, get it to a friend, fix up your old laptop and give it to a kid who can use it for school. Like, manufacturing these electronics is so resource intensive. We need to get the maximum possible utility out of it. And just to put this in climate change context, if everyone in the U.S. were to use their phone for just an extra year, it's the equivalent of taking 600,000 cars off the road.
Wow.
It's a huge amount of raw material energy input into manufacturing these semiconductors.
Is there, on that front, are there categories of product that we should just absolutely avoid? Like, I look at things like battery backups and I think, oh man, this is an incredibly handy thing. I use it all the time.
Yeah.
But is the impact of this worse than, just plugging my phone into the wall more often or whatever?
I mean, yes, it is worse. I mean, in general, the less that we have, the better, right? But then when we are going to buy things, like I've got some like really nice desktop speakers here, I decided to invest in nice speakers for my computer, but I'm going to hang on to them for the next like 15 years, right?
Yeah. I mean, Brad is still using the Cambridge Soundwork Cube speakers that he bought in 1998 or something.
The cord doesn't quite reach my camera, but I have had these since about 1999.
And there's, you buy a speaker, like it should last forever, right?
Yeah, speakers don't get worse, and like speaker design is fairly timeless, right? This
is why I yell at Sonos every time they make a speaker that doesn't have an analog input, because it's like, look, guys, you're making a speaker that could last for 50 years, but then you're putting your proprietary app on it. Like, doesn't matter how good you are at software, it's not going to last more than 10 years.
So I've got 2 Sonos soundbars, and that is a thing that I worry about all the time, is if this company goes away and this is such a black box, like what am I even going to do with this thing if I can suddenly no longer access it?
But if it had an analog input, then it doesn't matter if it stops being a smart speaker. You can still use it.
This is the thing I've always wanted. I want somebody to make open source pucks, open source board designs that we can just pop out of all the smart speakers that are going to get end of life in the next 2 years, the first gen ones, and just put your open platform voice thing in there, or just make it a normal speaker. Yeah.
I expect Will and Brad to make it happen.
Anything, Brad?
Considering I just retired a pair of 15-year-old monitors, I am with you in spirit.
So this has been fantastic, Kyle. Thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it. And if there's anything else, let's see, anything we've forgotten, anything we should have hit that we didn't hear?
I would just say stay tuned. We're going to need everybody's help to get Right to Repair over the finish line. So be prepared to call your legislator, your local state reps come January and support your local bill. If we get enough of us rabble-rousing and making noise, like we could have one big push and then get these laws across the finish line. And
you all will post about that on iFixit and the iFixit Twitter and all the relevant places, I assume.
Absolutely. Yeah, follow us at iFixit, and I'm at Kyle Wiens.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kyle. It's always a pleasure to chat with you, my friend, and I hope you have I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks, guys.
Brad, we've reached the portion of the show where we thank the patrons.
It's my favorite portion of the show. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
It's true.
Sorry, Kyle. Thank you, patrons.
Well, look, I mean, that was a great interview, to be fair. Like, Kyle is very interesting, and like I didn't realize until I started researching this episode, like exactly what an institution iFixit is. I mean, I use it. But like it was when I saw like, oh, the New York Times quoted him about this Apple thing, and oh, he's testified in front of Congress. I was like, wow, this is like they're making some stuff happen. This is not just some teardown guides.
Well, I mean, it is just teardown guides. That's the thing. It's teardown guides and parts and kits and hardware
at the core. Yes, but there's an element of like visible activism to it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, like that is it is not just a place where Kyle sells you hardware that can fix your broken phone. He's also doing the work on the other side to make it easier for him to get the hardware to sell you, potentially, I guess. I don't know. and make it easier for everybody to get access to that. Cause he actually believes in, and I believe in what he believes in. I believe that it's right to fix stuff and reuse it rather than chuck it in the trash. So.
Yes. But as interesting and inspiring as that conversation was,
this is your favorite part of the show. I
mean, they're the reason we're here.
That's true. So I guess thank you, patrons.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, I'm a little delirious today.
It's okay. And you didn't. And you didn't take the Sudafed.
No, I did not. If I took the Sudafed, I'd be bouncing off the walls. If you would like to support the show, we are 100% listener supported. For $2 a month, you can get in and join the TechPod Discord, which is full of wonderful nerds who talk about a massive variety of things, from the latest video games. I've been enjoying the Inscription spoiler chat, even though I haven't finished the third act of the game yet for reasons. It's been busy.
Oh, you got to finish that game.
I know. The second act, I wasn't a huge fan of. Third act's pretty good.
Yeah, it gets better. It closes very strong.
But like we talk about networking, music production and audio stuff and like setting up home servers and all the kind of stuff that we talk about in the podcast is happening every day in the Discord.
Once again, this morning, the residents of the Linux channel helped me build some obscure thing off of GitHub that I couldn't quite get over the finish line myself.
There you go.
And that's always fun.
But as always, we want to thank our executive producer tier patrons, including Chris DeBona, Andrew Slosky, #Bunny Crimes. I think Bunny Fiend is rebranded.
Oh,
but
boy.
I'm not sure.
That is very fiendish.
Jacob Chappell, Joel Krauska, Twinkle Twinkie, David Allen, and James Kamek. Thank you all so much. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
And thanks to all of our patrons. This is the week that we remind everyone also.
Oh, yeah.
That we turn Q's into A's next week.
That's right. Get them in.
If you're on the Patreon, if you're a patron, you can go in the Discord to the Q's into A's channel.
Q's question seeking answers.
Question seeking answers. That's right. Question seeking answers channel, and post your question there. We'll see it. If you're not, you can send an email to techpod@content.town. That's techpod@content.town. And if you want to find out how to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/techpod. Again, it's patreon.com/techpod.
I have to tell you, for being slightly delirious, that was one of the tightest, here's all of our socials and contact info and ways to support us pitches that I have ever heard you make.
Well, look, I usually try to put one at the beginning and one at the end so I don't hit them all at once. But I was like, God, I got to get all this stuff in here right now because I'm going to forget if I don't. So yeah, that's it. That's the show this week. Thank you to Kyle so much. Make sure you check out iFixit. If you don't know about it already, it is an incredible resource for everyone who has things what break. And as you and Kyle pointed out adroitly, entropy is the enemy of all of us. So if we can fight entropy, there's no better thing you can do with your life than to fight entropy.
We got to stick together. That's the only way we're going to win.
Yeah. So check out iFixit.com. You can find we'll post Kyle's Twitter and the iFixit Twitter in the show notes, so you can find them there. And we'll be back next week with some Q's that we will turn into A's. Thanks for listening, everybody.